All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Renee Johnson, and we are going to get started with a quick, short video for everyone about the USTDA. So give us one quick second as we pull up the video for you to view about the USTDA. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Renee Johnson, and I am a senior advisor here at Public-Private Strategies. We are Public-Private Strategies, and this is part of the Business Leader Briefing series. The Business Leader Briefing is a nonpartisan series that provides educational resources and connects business leaders with policymakers, thought leaders, and market influencers. The series is also known as the BLB, began in late January of 2021 as an opportunity to connect small businesses like yours across the country with various representatives of Congress, members of the administration, just to understand what was going on here in Washington, D.C., and give you an opportunity to learn more about resources and find out ways of assistance for your businesses with a concerted effort to ensure that the American economy continues to build back stronger from COVID-19. The Business Leader Briefing is a project of the Public-Private Strategies Institute. A little housekeeping before we begin today. Just so everyone knows, we are accepting questions. We will love for you to engage and have those opportunities to talk more with the ambassador. So please use the Q&A function to do so. Use that right there. So the chat function is disabled, but we will love to read the questions you have for him and just go for it in the Q&A section. And without further ado, because I know that we're all excited to know more about the ambassador, I'm going to turn it over to him for him to provide a little introduction about who he is and what he does at the USTDA. Ambassador?
Renee, thank you so much for hosting us. What a privilege it is to be here today and be with all your constituents. I'd like to thank the Public-Private Strategies Institute for hosting this Business Leaders Briefing. I appreciate this opportunity to familiarize everyone with the U.S. Trade and Development Agency and our important work both here in the U.S. and around the world. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge the importance that February holds for us. It's Black History Month, and this year's theme of Black health and wellness aligns with a core value of the agency, which is to make a difference in people's lives at home and abroad. USTDA is an agency that is committed to advancing equity and creating opportunities for the improvement of communities that have been historically underserved. This is good for all of us. So please let me introduce you to who we are. USTDA is a foreign assistance agency that also has a mandate to support U.S. jobs through exports. This dual mission makes us truly unique in Washington, D.C. Our role within the U.S. government is to help emerging markets plan and develop sustainable infrastructure using U.S. goods and services. This means that we work with U.S. companies in fast-growing markets in places like Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, and the Indo-Pacific region, for example. And we work in infrastructure sectors, including clean energy and transportation, information and communication technologies, commonly known as, referred to as ICT, healthcare infrastructure, and agribusiness. I'd like to take a few moments to explain the importance of our work and how US companies benefit. As you can imagine, developing large-scale infrastructure projects requires a lot of complex analysis. They require engineers across many disciplines. They require project managers, technical experts, financial analysts, environmental and social impact evaluators, legal and regulatory experts who know the local market. And then there's the challenge of knowing the latest and most appropriate technologies for the project. And finally, the ultimate success of the infrastructure project will depend on finding qualified and experienced companies to construct and oversee the construction of the project. This is a lot of work to handle. And as you can see, it takes a very deep bench of talent, of successful plan, to successfully plan major infrastructure projects. In addition, the financial institutions that invest in these projects want to be assured that the analyses they receive are accurate and reliable. This is understandable when you consider that they may invest tens or hundreds of millions of dollars into projects. Most emerging economies overseas have talented experts who can produce sound technical and financial analyses, but often they may not have the breadth of experience required by the banks, or they may not be as familiar with the very latest technologies or innovative solutions to develop high quality, sustainable infrastructure that is built to last. On top of all this, the private sector may not be willing to take on all the project development risks in developing and middle income economies. This is where USTDA comes in. Our country has an incredible deep bench of talent when it comes to infrastructure development. That's why we have so many overseas project sponsors seeking USTDA's assistance for their infrastructure needs. I'd like to be clear about one thing. USTDA is not a bank. We do not actually provide financing to build the infrastructure projects. What we do is much different, but yet complementary to the projects. At USTDA, we make grant funding available to these overseas project sponsors so they can hire US companies and US experts to help them plan bankable infrastructure deals that can be financed. Because of this, USTDA is known as the Overseas Project Preparation Agency of the US government. Our planning tools include feasibility studies, technical assistance, and pilot projects. At the same time, US companies are eager for USTDA to work with these project sponsors because we engage at the early phases of the project development cycle when technology choices are defined and determined. All of this is fundamental to American competitiveness. By defining the technical requirements for overseas infrastructure projects, we're able to create a level, fair playing field for US firms. At the end of the day, our assistance generates two important outcomes. First, our overseas partners are provided a bankable blueprint for developing sustainable quality infrastructure. And the second one is, it positions US companies to provide the goods and services that will be required once a project obtains financing from the banks. Our program has generated great results. For every dollar invested in our programming, USTDA is now generating an average of $117 in US exports. Since our founding 30 years ago, USTDA has supported more than $76 billion of US exports across the United States. including small businesses from more than 370 communities. Thank you.
Wow, that is amazing. USTDA does so much amazing work. And I'm excited that we're able to have this dialogue because I think there's so many people that, one, didn't know what USTDA did or knew anything about it, and then two, how they can get involved. So this is a great opportunity for so many small business owners to learn about USTDA. So I got a couple questions. So the first one is, who performs USTDA's overseas project preparation work? The feasibility studies and like the pilot projects. And then on top of that, I know there are federal contracts. Are these federal contracts that small business owners can apply for? And if so, how can they apply?
Great question, Renee. USTDA's project preparation activities are executed by US companies exclusively. The structure of our program is unlike anything in the US government. USTDA provides grant funding to an overseas project sponsor who must select a US company to conduct the feasibility study. So the US company's client is not us, not USTDA. It's our overseas project sponsor. As such, these are not US government contracts that fall under federal acquisitions regulations, FARs as they call them. Every year, USTDA sponsors around 24 feasibility studies that are completed, that are competed among US businesses. These opportunities generally range in terms of money, $300,000 to $1.5 million each. At the moment, we have a handful of opportunities that are open for competition. There's a healthcare project in South Africa, a pair of procurement assistance activities for the government of Brazil, and another project in Brazil to help integrate ICT into the operations of the country's passenger rail network. By the way, all of these opportunities can be found on USTDA's website at ustda.gov. Small businesses are often selected to execute these studies. For example, there's a New York-based minority-owned small business called Vrinda, VRINDA, that helped a Brazilian utility develop a plan for integrating renewable energy into its local power grid. Vrinda also introduced our grantee to US technologies that could address their needs. As a result of our assistance and the advice of this small business, several US companies exported information technology to the project, which is helping the utility advance the use of renewable energy in its service area. This is a great example of a small business that's making a global impact through their work with us here at USTDA.
Wow, that's a great example. And you mentioned these studies, but a US company submit a proposal. Is that to USTDA directly? And then also, is it like via the website they can find this information, like the contracts and all of that that are available?
A quick answer is yes. For USTDA's grant activities, we accept sole source proposals from US companies that have already partnered with eligible overseas project sponsors. Here's a great example. There's a Maryland-based company called IM Systems Group, also a minority-owned small business, that has developed a proprietary technology for aviation sector weather forecasting. The government, just recently, the government of Vietnam has a great interest in this technology. So USTDA and this small business are sharing the cost of a pilot project for Vietnam to demonstrate the applicability of this technology to Vietnam's needs. So, like I said, yes, USTDA accepts sole source proposals. But there is one piece of advice that I'd like to provide companies before they submit a proposal to USTDA. I highly recommend that they first speak with our relevant regional team. For example, if you're working with a project sponsor in Nigeria, please reach out to our sub-Saharan African team regarding USTDA's requirements. Their contact information can also be found on our website. But be prepared to answer a few critical questions about your project. Some of our project evaluation criteria include the project's export potential, what are the total capital requirements for the project, and which lenders have expressed an interest in the project, and what are the project's likely economic development impacts for the host country. So kind of a high level, these basic questions, it's very helpful if a person calling or the company calling would have some sense of what the answers for these questions would be, Renee.
No, that's very helpful. And I see the questions coming in and it's like, okay, this is good to know. So does USTDA also offer direct contract opportunities for US companies and small business owners as we're talking about Black History Month for Black-owned businesses in particular?
Yes. Let me say that small businesses play a critical role in our agency's success. They're not incidental to the program by any means. They're essential to our program. Let me explain. USTDA relies on the expertise and innovation of US small businesses. Our success has its roots in the capabilities of these critical partners. We're also committed to the principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is an important formula for our success. Let's consider some of our numbers. In the year, this is last fiscal, 2021, USTDA awarded approximately 82% of the total value of its government contracts to US small businesses. Of this amount, about 17% of our contracts went to Black-owned small businesses. This record places USTDA, is rarefied company among US government agencies. I'm very proud to say that. Many of our contract opportunities are smaller than $250,000, which means they're automatically and exclusively set aside for small businesses. We utilize other small business programs to contract with underserved and underrepresented communities at any dollar value, really. We also target minority-owned businesses, including Black-owned businesses, for sole source set-asides under the 8A and other such programs. USTDA also has a special outreach initiative called Making Global Local. We refer to it as MGL. Brings new businesses into USTDA's ecosystem of opportunity. And it joins entities at home and abroad that might not otherwise connect. MGL seeks to benefit all US companies, including Black-owned businesses that are vital to our economy and create meaningful employment opportunities for their communities. Our website contains additional information on this very important initiative, Renee.
Wow. And I love the Making Global Local, because it's like, you want to go outside your community and bring the world to your community with your business. So that's an amazing initiative. And I love the way that sounds. So that is so awesome. And people can find more about that on USTDA's website.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so cool. Okay. So let's talk more about these contract opportunities, because I think that's what I'm seeing a lot of these questions coming in. For what kind of services do you regularly contract? I'm seeing people ask about IT. I'm seeing people ask for consulting. So are we able to dive into that a little bit more?
Sure. In terms of direct contracts with us at USTDA, I'd like to profile our desk study and definitional mission contracts. Let me explain what these are. When USTDA receives a funding proposal for an overseas infrastructure project, we contract with a small business to supplement our internal expertise and knowledge. For example, if we receive a proposal for a geothermal power plant feasibility study in Kenya, USTDA will contract with a US small business with geothermal expertise that'll provide us with a very initial professional assessment as to whether the project could be technically and financially viable. They also assess whether the project has a good chance of supporting US exports. The small business contractor also helps USTDA refine the draft scope of work for the study to make sure it addresses the questions that the bank may have before lending to a project. And they'll help us develop a feasibility study budget that is fair. This kind of contract we commonly refer to as a desk study, or if it involves overseas travel to gather more project details, then it is referred to as a definitional mission. We have recently hired Black-owned businesses to conduct power sector desk studies for us in Eastern Europe, and a definitional mission to the Middle East. These are exciting opportunities for small businesses to work with USTDA and have an impact that is truly global in nature. Like most federal agencies, USTDA has a need for other kinds of services to support its operations and programming. This includes everything from design services to management consulting, for example. Most of our contract opportunities are promoted on our website. Once again, USTDA.gov, as well as on sam.gov. If any companies are interested in exploring the desk study and definitional mission opportunities, I suggest reaching out to my colleague Cynthia Hasorutono from our public affairs team. She can put you in touch with the relevant people from our, the rest of our colleagues at the agency. Yeah, we stand ready.
I love to hear that. People are excited. So Cynthia, be prepared. People are about to call you. I'm really excited about this. And I know time is wrapping up for us to end, but I have a couple more quick questions for you. So I understand that USTDA also supports a lot of events. Are these open to the public? And if so, how can businesses participate and learn more about events that you all have?
We're open to public, absolutely, yes. USTDA supports many partnership building activities between US companies and overseas decision makers who are looking for US solutions to their infrastructure needs. We host numerous events and workshops throughout the year, and all US companies are invited to participate. These are a great opportunity to meet potential overseas business partners and business sort of decision makers, as well as other US companies that can help build your business here in the US. For example, this week we hosted virtual workshops to promote US participation in ICT projects in Thailand and in sub-Saharan Africa. USTDA also funds what we call reverse trade missions, where we bring overseas buyers, basically decision makers, to the United States and introduce them to US solutions for their infrastructure needs. As you can imagine, COVID has put a halt to these missions for the last almost coming up on 2 years. But once they resume, Renee, US companies will be able to meet these key decision makers and introduce them to their, to their capabilities, products, and services. Our delegations often visit US companies. That's what they're here to do there. They visit their manufacturing facilities and locations where the technology is on display. These visits allow USTDA to bring overseas business opportunities to the doorsteps of the US companies, both large and small. And if I can say one more For small and medium enterprises, this is a gold mine because the buyers have come to their doorstep to meet them and learn about what they can do for their infrastructure projects. It's very, very important. It's very popular as well. We've done a lot of reverse trade missions. Any US company can sign up to participate in our events. Our website, USTDA.gov, has an events page where you will find event registration links. I also strongly recommend that people sign up for our weekly news roundup. In it, we profile USTDA's latest events, RFPs, and press releases. I meant to say RPFs and press releases. It's a great way to stay on top of what we are doing here. The front page of our website has a link to where you can subscribe to USTDA's weekly updates. So I highly recommend it.
Wow, that's amazing. A lot of great information on USTDA's website, USTDA.org. Also, I know we're almost at time, seriously, because this ends at 3:30, but wanted to ask before we concluded, where you see USTDA headed. What will the agency be focused on in the years to come? Because I know everyone is looking at trade, everyone's looking at development with the infrastructure bill that is now law. What does this mean? Contract and procurement. People are excited. People are building businesses. So what are your thoughts? Where do you see the agency? You take us out on that.
Yeah. We see, as we are coming out of this funk, we see tremendous opportunities, particularly with SMEs. Our Sub-Saharan Africa portfolio is our agency's largest globally. It is incredibly dynamic and grounded in the strength of our partnerships with both the public and private sectors across the continent. But the real reason the portfolio is our largest is because the engagement and demand for US industry and because of the potential for infrastructure growth in the continent. Just this past year alone, we've launched more than 30 new activities that will help support US jobs through exports to infrastructure projects in 16 African countries. These activities have the potential to unlock more than $10 billion in financing for Africa's infrastructure and generate nearly $4.5 billion in US exports. Our sector priorities in Africa reflect those of the agencies more broadly. As I said, these clean energy and transportation, ICT, healthcare infrastructure, and agribusiness. A few moments ago, I mentioned our reverse trade missions. In the case of Sub-Saharan Africa, we have supported 50 such missions over the past decade. Looking ahead, we're planning for events that will be focused on port logistics in Cote d'Ivoire, climate smart infrastructure in South Africa, and healthcare infrastructure across the continent, for example. A broader theme across all of these sectors is access. Our goal is to deploy innovative US technology and solutions that help more people have access to sustainable infrastructure. This will support Africa's economic growth and improve the livelihood of millions of people.
This was so amazing and so just fascinating to learn about what USTDA does, how it helps so many small business owners, mid-sized, mid-tier small business owners learn, develop, and grow, and the ability to have an entire agency at their fingertips to assist them. And the reverse trade missions, I mean, I don't have a business, but I feel like today I'm going to learn how to create one because this seems like an amazing opportunity that I don't want to miss. So I want to thank you, Ambassador, so much for joining us here today. I want to thank all of you small business owners, mid-sized business owners, all of you amazing people who came to listen today. This is not the last of the Business Leader Briefing series, and not the last you hear from the ambassador. We will be back with more. I know people want to hear from you again. So this is an open invitation to you, sir, to come back, because I think this is the start of an amazing relationship of information sharing of the amazing things that go on at USTDA. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Vinay, thank you so much, and I can't wait to get to know the association more, but equally importantly, your constituents, folks who have dialed in today. We're looking forward to working with you, and thank you so much.
No, thank you. And with that, we thank you so much for joining us for today's Business Leader Briefing, and we will see you next time. Cheers.
Bye-bye.